Hello YouTube, it's NBA 2K22 updates here, and today we have a trade deadline NBA video. So I haven't filmed a video since Tuesday, so today we will be going over all the trades that happened today on the February 10th NBA trade deadline, and also all the videos that happened yesterday on Wednesday. So this will probably be a pretty long video, so sit tight, get a snack, and relax. So the first trade that happened was yesterday, February 9th, Wednesday, when the Oklahoma City Thunder traded for small forward KZ Okpala from the Miami Heat. The Thunder only gave up a 2026 second round pick. That's all they gave up. So they pretty much got Okpala for free. Okpala was not playing very well in Miami, but also wasn't getting much playing time this season. In 21 games, he's averaged 4 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist on 43, 35, 73 shooting on a 50% effective field goal percentage. And he hasn't really got much playing time for Miami, but he hasn't played very well either in his limited playing time. So the Thunder, who are my favorite team, I'm sad that they didn't make any trades, but they did get a guy that they can develop. Sam Presti knows what he's doing, and they only traded a second round pick for him, so they could end up getting something out of him. This is KZ in a Thunder jersey on 2K. So after the trade, he is with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Next trade was a 3-team trade involving the Portland Trail Blazers, the Utah Jazz, and the San Antonio Spurs. So in this trade, the Portland Trail Blazers traded, the Spurs traded Juan Hernangomez to the Jazz. The Jazz traded Elijah Hughes, two second round picks, and Joe Ingles. They went to the Blazers. One of the second round picks went both of them went to the Trailblazers. And then the Trailblazers traded Tomas Satoransky to the Spurs and Nickeil Alexander-Walker to the Jazz. So we'll break it down for Portland first. For Portland, they got Elijah Hughes, who is a very young player. He's only in his, I think, second season from Syracuse. And last season he averaged very small points, 2 points per game, half an assist and half of a rebound and half of an assist. So he wasn't playing very well, but he did get playing time. But the Jazz weren't using him, which is why he did end up getting traded to the Trailblazers, who are pretty much a rebuilding team at this point. In 14 games so far this season, Elijah Hughes has averaged 3 points, 1 rebound, and a half of an assist on 42, 36, 100 shooting splits with a 56 effective field goal percentage. So he's had decent shooting percentages. So if the Blazers can give him some more playing time, which they probably will, then he could turn into something. Also for Portland, they got Joe Ingles. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on Ingles here because the problem with him is he is on a season-ending injury. He does have a season-ending injury, and he is most likely going to get bought out. He is on an expiring contract. So I would expect for Ingles to get bought out by Portland. They aren't going to play him, obviously, because he's hurt. And I expect him to go on a veterans minimum deal to some team next year, and they can expect him back near this time in next season. This season, before his injury, Ingles was averaging 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 3.5 assists on 40, 34, 77 shooting splits with a 54% effective field goal in 45 games. But he said that personally he thinks he's going to bounce back from his injuries. But I really think that what happens is in the offseason he signs a vet's minimum contract because teams aren't going to think that he can really do much next season. He's going to be out for half the season. So either he's not going to get signed at all until next season once he's healthy, or he'll get signed on a vet's minimum in free agency this year. And then he'll come in, and I think he'll be like super bad this next year. But then once he gets used to playing basketball again, I think in the 2023-24 season he could be okay. But I don't think he'll return to what he once was as a great defender and shooter. But obviously he'll still keep his shooting abilities. Now for the San Antonio Spurs. They pretty much did a swap Juancho Hernan-Gomez for Tomas Satoransky. Satoransky has not been playing very well. The Portland Trailblazers traded for him on, they traded for him on Tuesday, but on Wednesday he was traded yet again. So Satoransky is now a part of the San Antonio Spurs. But like I have talked about in my last 2 YouTube videos, he is on a big $10 million contract and he's 30 years old. So he will it's already pretty much a done deal. He will be bought out by the Spurs. With New Orleans, he was averaging 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists on horrible shooting splits of 30, 16, and 76, 32 effective field goal percentage on 32 games played. He did not play a game with Portland, obviously. Now for the Utah Jazz. They did very well in this trade, personally, is what I think, because they traded an expiring contract, which was Joe Ingles, and 2 second-round picks, along with a guy that wasn't going to be on the team anymore with Elijah Hughes. They didn't really want him. He wasn't getting playing time anyway. They traded them for Juan Hernan-Gomez, who is a free agent this year as well. He's on a big old $7 million contract. But he has played pretty decent the last few years, and he wasn't getting any playing time in Boston. So if Utah can get him a little bit of playing time, I think he can be a really good player for them. This season with Boston, he was averaging 1 point and then 1 rebound. But with San Antonio, he played in a few games. He averaged 1 point and 3 rebounds per game with a half an assist and 5 games played. But San Antonio traded him yet again to Utah after he was traded in a Bryn Forbes Bull trade to the Spurs. For Nickeil Alexander-Walker, this is a great situation for him. He's a young player, and he now is on a good, and some people would say great team in the Utah Jazz, who gave up nothing to get him. And he is an outstanding player when it comes to catch and shoot. And I think he can really help this team. And he's in his 3rd year, and he's averaged 13, 3, and 3 on 37, 31, 72 shooting this year and 50 games played, which is better than he averaged last year, but people are still saying that he is worse than he was last year, most likely because of his shooting splits. But stats-wise, he's much better than he was last year. So I personally think it's a great pickup for Utah. Now for their jerseys, Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets to keep his number 6 in Utah. But he will bring a lot to this team and will be an outstanding shooter. He will be able to back up both of these guys up here. I think they play him at some small forward minutes because Daniel House, as much as Jazz fans say that he's really good, he's not as good as Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been, so I think he can be a backup to Royce O'Neal. But really, I think the position that he's going to be played at the most is backup point guard for Mike Conley. He can come in and off the bench with a unit of Jordan Clarkson himself, Daniel House, Rudy Gay, and Hassan Whiteside. He can get some passes. He can sit in the corner. He can just nail threes from about anywhere on the court. He can knock down jump shots. That's what puts the Jazz into the tier of the Suns and Warriors, in my opinion, is getting a guy that can help. He's pretty much, what he brings to the table is almost the same as Joe Ingles, except his perimeter defense is the same as Ingles, surprisingly, and his playmaking is better. So in terms of 2K, Alexander Walker is a better player than Ingles, so it's an interesting pickup for the Jazz. Also, Juan Hernangomez coming to the Jazz. He will just be a scorer in his limited playing time. He can drive to the basket and get buckets. I don't think he's going to do much other than that. For the Spurs, they got Tomas, like I've said before, and Thomas Satoranski is a big point guard, but he will be bought out just because of that big contract. But I do see him landing with another team before the playoffs start. And then lastly, for the Blazers, with the jerseys, Elijah Hughes. I really think Elijah Hughes has a good future in the NBA. He was just in a bad spot in Portland where he was behind tons of players. That's why I thought Udoka Azubuike would get traded, because he has shown flashes, but he doesn't get any playing time in Utah. So he does. So I think he could help out in another team, but just not the Jazz for both of them. That's what I think. Joe Ingles, for his face scan, he needs to get his face scan fixed up by 2K. It looks like a 5-year, or it looks like a 90-year-old. But I think if Ingles somehow, by a miracle, stays with Utah, he could really help them. But there's no way in my mind that he stays. So now we go to the trades that happened today. The first trade that happened was this trade for the Boston Celtics, where they gave up Bol, PJ Dozier, and a second-round pick that actually is in 2028, but you can't go that far in 2K. And the Magic released Etuan Moore and Michael Carter-Williams, but I just included them in the trade to make the players match, and then released them. And they also got a 2023 second-round pick. The Magic did. Or the Celtics did, excuse me. So the Magic get 2 young players. They did end up releasing PJ Dozier, which doesn't really make an impact on the team. But Bol is a young player who the Magic can develop. They didn't even have that many players in their front court, so I think Bol can really help. Everyone likes Bol a lot. He'll get a lot of fan favorite votes in Orlando. He'll be fun to watch once he gets a lot more playing time, coming off the bench for players like Wendell Carter and Jonathan Isaac once Isaac gets back. But don't expect Bol to be waived, obviously. PJ Dozier was only waived because he had no hope of coming back in the season, and he's also older. But Bol could come back later in the season, and also is only 22 and still developing. So I like this trade for Orlando. And so far on the season, Bol is averaging He's averaging 2 points, 1 rebound on 56, 25, 40% shooting with a 57% effective field goal percentage on 14 games played. And now, if you guys remember, he was originally traded to the Detroit Pistons for a second-round pick and Rodney McGruder, but that trade fell through once Bol had foot surgery, which is what he's dealing with now, and that's why he is currently out. That's also why he never played a game with Boston. They only made the trade reportedly because they wanted to clear up cap space for this offseason. The next trade we're going to go over involves the Toronto Raptors and San Antonio Spurs, in which the Spurs gave up Drew Eubanks, Thaddeus Young, and a second-round pick, and the Raptors gave up Goran Dragic and a first-round pick. Don't mind DJ Wilson. He actually is not involved in the trade. He's not even on an NBA roster right now. But the first-round pick that the Raptors gave up is lottery protected. And the Raptors immediately waived Drew Eubanks. So first, actually, we will talk about Eubanks. Eubanks is a great center in this league. He's pretty athletic and can play well. But the Spurs included him most likely because he wasn't getting much playing time. He played in 49 games this season, which is a ton. But he only averaged 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist on 53, 13, 75. But he was only averaging 12 minutes per game, 14 the last season, but he wasn't playing as well as last season. So, it'll be interesting. I think Eubanks will catch on to a team pretty soon. I really don't think he's going to be a free agent for very long. But the Raptors also got Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus is a really good stretch four and has been playing very well in his limited playing time for San Antonio. He hasn't been playing very well. That's what I meant to say. But he has been averaging 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists on 58% from the field, 58% from the field, 0% from 3. I guess he hasn't probably shot one. And then 45% from free throw line with 58 effective field goal in 26 games played. He's been playing very limited minutes for San Antonio. Last season with the Chicago Bulls, he played 24 minutes per game. This season, only 14, with only 1 start this season when the whole Spurs front court was completely decimated. So Thaddeus Young can come to this team. He's a great defender, and he is a pretty decent scorer on offense. So he can do a little bit of everything for the Toronto Raptors. And I do not expect them to release him because he can come to this team. He can be a good backup power forward once Scotty Barnes takes the bench and once Siakam takes the bench. He can come in and help this team a lot. And I really think that they're going to use him, that he might even be signed to an extension this offseason because, if I'm not mistaken, he is a free agent this offseason. So, Thaddeus can come to this team. He is a free agent unless he has a player option. He does not have a player or team option, so he is a free agent this offseason. And I really think that he can come to this team and contribute right away. And the Raptors, with this trade, obviously pretty much were already trying to make a playoff push, but this trade just makes it 100%, makes us all 100% sure that they are. With this trade, this team now looks pretty decent. They are a very young team that can compete for a Eastern Conference Finals spot this year potentially, even though they are so young. So it's a very intriguing team, a good one to watch. And if they can develop young guys like Malachi Flynn, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, and Scotty Barnes, then this team could be NBA champions in a few years, just like they were not that long ago. So now with the San Antonio Spurs, there are reports that they are buying out Goran Dragic, already reports. So it's pretty much official that he's not going to play a game for the San Antonio Spurs. So we won't even spend any time with him as he's not going to play a single game there. So next we have the 4-team trade that happened between the Pistons, Clippers, Kings, and Bucks. Now this trade, you can't do 4-team trades in NBA 2K, so I had to split it up. So we'll not go over it in that tab. We will just go over it by team. So in this trade, The Bucks got Serge Ibaka and 2 second-round picks with Brook Lopez out for the season. It doesn't show it here, but he is out for the season. And Sandro Mamukelashvili being on a 2-way contract. Bobby Portis' main backup will now be Serge Ibaka. Ibaka is a great stretch 4 and 5 for this team. And he was dealing with back problems with the Clippers, but he looks like he's better and has recovered from it now. 2K does need to fix his face scan, but other than that, he's fine. And he is on a big contract, which is the main reason why the Clippers traded him away. But they ended up trading him away for some players that we're about to get to. Serge Ibaka is averaging 7 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist this season on 49, 39, 69, 55 effective percentage, 35 games played. So for the Los Angeles Clippers, like I said, they traded him away for Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood. Ojeleye this season hasn't really played much for the Bucks. I thought it was a great signing when it first happened, but he's barely played this year. In 20 games, he's averaged 3 points, 3 rebounds, 26% from the field, 27 from 3, and 77 from the free throw line. So pretty decent stats, but not very good percentages. So Ojeleye, he will be able to help this team if they do not release him. He is only on the minimum, so I do think that they probably will release him, but he will catch on with another team. I'm pretty sure of that. But with a stacked power forward position, he could run small forward, but they're pretty stacked at that position too. So Ojeleye will most likely be released, and I would think that they would maybe bring back Xavier Moon. And actually, no, they are there are talks that they're going to bring back Amir Coffey on a complete 1-year contract. So Coffey will most likely be signed to a rest of season contract. And that'll take up that roster spot that they will most likely get from waiving either Hood or Ojeleye. Now with Rodney Hood, Hood is a great ball distributor. And this season is averaging smaller numbers than what he is used to. He's averaging 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist on 35, 30, 93 shooting splits, 44 effective percentage in 39 games played. Hood has been pretty good in years past, scoring the ball and passing the ball, like I've said before. But what he's mainly known for is a scorer. That's why he was drafted by the Jazz from Duke in 2014, 23rd overall. He started off his career really well, averaging 15 points in just his second year, and then 15 points again in his 4th year. Then went to Portland. He averaged 11 for 2 seasons, and then Portland traded him to Toronto. That's when his career started to really fall off. And then now he is with the Clippers after starting the season with the Bucks. Hood has been okay this year, but it's really between him and Ojeleye to get released. I really do think that he will stay on the team though, because he is a solid player, even if he hasn't been playing well this year. And the Kings in this trade got 3 players. The first of which is Trey Lyles. Lyles is a 7-year pro. He was drafted 12th by the Utah Jazz in 2015, but then traded to the Denver Nuggets in the Donovan Mitchell draft night trade. And then he played pretty decent at Denver, left for San Antonio in free agency, played there for 2 years up until last season, and then came to Detroit, where he was until this trade happened. Lyles is a pretty good scorer, but he can't really play the greatest defense. But I'm not saying he's a bad defender at all, because he is not really even that bad on defense. This season, he's averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game on 46, 30, 78 shooting, 51 effective percentage, and 51 games played. He's pretty good, and it's nice to see him get a bigger opportunity on a better team this year with the Sacramento Kings. And I also was wrong. I thought for sure that Richaun Holmes was going to get traded. I was saying it in my YouTube videos from the last few days. I was like, Richaun Holmes is going to get traded. He's not going to be in Sacramento. Now here we are after the trade deadline. He's still in Sacramento. So I was wrong there. Also in this trade, they got Justin Jackson. Jackson's a great scorer. He's still relatively young. And this year, I think he's averaging pretty decent stats. But he's been rumored to being traded since last offseason. Jackson is averaging this season 7 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 41, 27, 71 shooting splits, 39 games played, and 18 minutes per game. Josh Jackson was supposed to be the next big thing coming out of Kansas, 4th overall in 2017 to the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix kept on to him for 2 years, then traded him to Memphis. Then he left and went to Detroit Pistons, where he was these 2 years. And now he ended up with the Kings. He's going to see a very small role with forwards Harrison Barnes and guards Jeremy Lamb, Dante DiVincenzo, and Davion Mitchell already here. But he is on the team nonetheless. For the Kings, also, they got a big pickup. Dante DiVincenzo is now on the team. DiVincenzo was a great player with the Bucks last year, and though he didn't play with them in the playoffs, he was a key part of them being such a high seed in the playoffs up until the playoffs when he was injured. This season, he's averaging 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists on 33, 28, 85 shooting splits, 17 games played because of the injury from last year. But DiVincenzo is a great scorer. He can help the Kings a ton. He can play decent defense. He's not a great defender, but he's, I'd say, one of the best defending shooting guards in the league, because he can play good defense, especially in NBA 2K. So if you're a Kings fan, buy NBA 2K, play with him. No, I'm kidding, but DiVincenzo, he's a great scorer. He can knock down threes, and he can play make with good basketball IQ. And I like what he can bring to the Kings. The Kings are now really trying to make a high seed in the playoffs. This is now what 2K thinks that their rotation will be like. I think Sabonis will start at power forward and Richaun at center. But yeah, this team is pretty good. I'm interested to see what they can be like this year in their first half season as a potential playoffs team. If they miss the playoffs or the play-in or anything, then I will give away $500 to somebody who likes this video. The Pistons, they are the last team in this trade. They got Marvin Bagley III, who is on the last year of his $11 million rookie contract. He was the 2nd overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft over Luka Doncic, Jaren Jackson Jr., Trae Young, Colin Sexton, all those guys, to the Sacramento Kings. They thought he had a lot of upside, and he actually still does have a ton of potential, and now he gets to show the Detroit Pistons how he can play. Sacramento, I feel like, was using him wrong and wasn't the right place for him, and now he finally gets a place to show what he's like and to play as hard as he can, try to dominate and revive his NBA career. He's averaging 9.7 rebounds and a half of an assist on 46, 24, 75 from the free throw line and 30 games played. I really think that he was misused with the Sacramento Kings, though. He finally really gets an opportunity in Detroit, though. This trade was rumored for many months now, and he finally officially is a Detroit Piston. Marvin Bagley's a really good player. He's even my profile picture on YouTube. And I really think he has a ton of upside in the NBA now that he finally gets a chance with the Detroit Pistons. Now that they acquired Bagley, this means that in the offseason they are most likely trading both of these men right here, Kelly Olynyk and Jeremy Grant. But the more likely to get traded is definitely Grant. If they hang on to anyone, I really think they'll be Olynyk. Olynyk has been pretty decent this year, but the worst has definitely been Jeremy Grant, who is really good, but they just don't want him on this team. I don't think that they should have him on this team, and it's just not a good fit with a really good player who wants like a huge contract for the Detroit Pistons, who don't want to be that good and don't want a huge contract. Now, the Indiana Pacers, they made a pretty decent trade this offseason, or this deadline. They traded Torrey Craig to the Phoenix Suns for Jalen Smith and a second-round pick. This is a horrible trade for the Phoenix Suns and a great trade for the Detroit Pistons. Now, here's my thought process. Smith has really emerged as a starting center with the Phoenix Suns once DeAndre Ayton and JaVale McGee were both out. Smith was playing very well. I thought his stock was going up as a trade target for teams. He did get his team option for next season declined and will be a free agent after this season. But he is still a great pickup for the Indiana Pacers as they're being a rebuilding team. He will be the starting center on this team since Miles Turner's hurt. Tristan Thompson, there are all kinds of reports that he's going to get bought out. He's obviously not staying on the team with that many reports. Jalen Smith has been really good. The Suns gave up him and a second-round pick. That's crazy to think about. Giving up a super young player and a second-round pick for a really good player in the now who played for them last season, so he knows everyone. But a really good player in the now, but he's not going to be a good player 2 years down the line. I don't even know if he's under contract for Phoenix. Jalen Smith isn't under contract either, but he can still help a team a lot more, in my opinion, than Torrey Craig in the future if the Pacers can re-sign him. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 46, 23, 77 from the field for Jalen, and 29 games played. He's been pretty good this season, but that was only once he got his spot and his chance to star. That is what he will get day and night, every day and every night in Indiana. Now for Phoenix, they got Torrey Craig, who was on their team in their championship run last year. Or either that or I'm mistaken, and he was with the Bucks and with their championship run. He was on one of the two teams. He was on the Phoenix Suns last year on their championship run. So he is returning to the Phoenix Suns. Torrey Craig has been really good as a scorer and finisher and defender even in this league. He's been a pretty good role player. 6.5, 4 and 1 assist this season with 46, 33, 77 from the field, 77 splits, 51 games played. He is a familiar face in Phoenix, like I've said a few times. He was on their team obviously last year, like I've said. And he's been a pretty good player in the NBA ever since a few years ago when the Denver Nuggets took a chance on him. He was undrafted, I think, way back in, I don't really know when, but I think it was 2015? Yeah, I'm pretty sure 2015 or 16 NBA draft. He was undrafted, and the Denver Nuggets finally signed him after he was playing overseas for 2 or 3 years. In 2017-18, he came over to Denver. He averaged 4 points, 3 rebounds, so pretty decent stats. And then he finally started coming out and dominating in 2019-20, 5-3-1 on 46, 33, 61. And then with Phoenix and Milwaukee, he was also really good as a role player. Craig will be able to help this team, maybe even help them make it back to the finals. They really needed a backup for Mikal Bridges. Ish Wainwright was playing a ton, and Jay Crowder I expected him to get traded at the deadline, but he didn't end up getting traded. He stays, so him and Torrey Craig will be able to help out Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson off the bench, unless they do choose to start Jay Crowder. For the Boston Celtics, they made a pretty decent-sized trade. They made a few trades, but actually, wait a second, I haven't even made this trade yet. So you guys get to see what my process was on my League, which is a better alternative to the NBA 2K start today. The Celtics traded Josh Richardson and Romeo Langford, as well as their own first-round pick this year. Top 4 protected, so top 5 protected. And the ability to swap 2028 picks. So we'll just put swap best in 2026 because, like I said, you can't go all the way there. With the Spurs, so this trade happened with the San Antonio Spurs. They traded all of this to the Spurs for Derek White, and the Celtics need a player. They only have 10 players on their team at this point, which is crazy to believe, but it actually is true. So we'll just sign some random person to a contract. We'll sign Nico Mannion, sure, even though he's overseas. I'll just release him from their team soon once they end up actually filling out their roster, because they only can have this small of an amount of players for like a week, and then they have to fill out their team. So I will fix that later. But it was Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, a first-round pick this year, and a swap best with the Spurs in exchange for Derek White from the Spurs. They made this trade, and it's actually pretty good. And here is their roster now. They have Derek White and Jaylen Brown both at shooting guard. White will be coming off the bench for Brown most likely, or well, obviously, but unless they decide to put Tatum back at power forward starting and Jaylen Brown back at starting small forward and put Derek White at starting shooting guard. But Derek White, he's on a 4-year contract, a pretty decent-sized contract, but he will be able to stay with this team for a while, which really helps them out. And he's a really good scorer and a really not decent, but he's a really, really good defender. He's averaging 14 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists this season on 43, 31, 87, and 49 games played. He's going to really help the Boston Celtics this year. He is having a down year relatively, but you can't see his stats previously because I did add the headband to him before I knew the glitch to keep his stats. But he is going to be able to bring great defense and playmaking and three-point shooting. As you can see up there, I talked about his scoring and his defense. He's going to really help this team if they know how to use him. And I'm pretty sure they'll know how to use him because they already have a very similar player in Marcus Smart. So this defending backcourt of Derek White and Marcus Smart, it will be a pretty good once they end up playing together. Derek White has been in trade discussions for the past 2 or 3 years. The Spurs just never pulled the trigger. Now they got an offer that was actually pretty decent. Romeo Langford, who is the 14th overall pick just a few seasons ago in 2018. who is on expiring contract, but if they really wanted, they could re-sign him if they like what they see from him. He's never done anything great in his career, but he's never got playing time from the Boston Celtics to do anything great. And because in his career he's only averaged 15 minutes per game, and he's only played in a total of 94 games. He hasn't barely played. He's averaging 5 points, 2 rebounds, and a half of an assist for Boston this year. 43, 35, 59 shooting on 44 games played. Now Langford's pretty good, and he can bring a lot of scoring to this team. But the main piece that they got is Josh Richardson, and I am very interested to see if they will buy Josh out or if they will keep him. Richardson has one more year left on his contract. I think if they do end up keeping him, they will end up trading him in the offseason, because I really don't think that he's going to be on the team for the remainder of his contract. He's averaging 10 points, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists on 44, 40, 86 shooting, 44 games played. I really don't think he's going to stick on this team. He's pretty good, and they have young guys that they want to develop, like Joshua Primo, Lonnie Walker, and maybe now even they want to develop Romeo Langford, also Trey Jones, and Devin Vassell. So I really don't think Josh Richardson's going to stay on this team long, unless they play him at the small forward maybe, but I really think that they would rather develop players like Walker, Primo, Langford, and Jones, and Vassell. So it's not a huge trade for San Antonio. It's a much more impactful trade for Boston, as you could tell what I was saying. But now let's move on to the biggest trade of the day, involving the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. This trade had been rumored for multiple weeks, and it ended up actually happening. James Harden was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers alongside Paul Millsap yesterday in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. Here's what the trade looked like. That's the official trade. Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and like I said, 2 first-round picks for those guys. And DeAndre Bembry was waived, so I just included him in the trade. Now the 76ers got James Harden. It's a great pickup for them. And I really think that they're really championship contenders now, because they have this big 3, you could say. Toby hasn't been that great this year, but he's still been pretty decent. And then you have Tyrese Maxey emerging as a superstar. James Harden, in this trade, had agreed to pick up his player option, so he will be on their team next year too. He is super good, and him and Embiid is going to be scary for the NBA. Harden's a great shooter, great scorer, great playmaker. You know how James Harden is. And he comes to this team and will team up with Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and a great defender, Matisse Thybulle, will most likely be his backup. That's how good this team is. Harden is insane, and he did like I said, part of the trade, accept his player option, so next season he will be officially still on the team. So he's on a 2-year contract. So the 76ers know that they're getting at least 2 years of James Harden. Harden is a really good player, as you probably know by now. But it says that number 13 is already taken. I don't know who has 13. This says no one's got 13, so it must mean that somebody's got it retired, but I don't know who that would be. It's Wilt Chamberlain, so James Harden doesn't get his signature number 13 anymore. I don't know what number he will decide to wear, but 2K has it set as 16. He might wear, I don't know what he's going to wear, because he can't even wear 3, because that's Allen Iverson's number. But this team is going to look scary. Joel Embiid, James Harden, pick and roll you could do, pick and pop, because Embiid can shoot too. This team is going to be scary to watch, and they're actually championship contenders for real, since they had Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris along with Ben Simmons as an all-star and Joel Embiid. It's going to be a great, fun team to watch. It's going to be fun to just sit back and relax and watch some Embiid, Harden, pick and roll, pick and pop, anything you want with this team. Next, you have Paul Millsap, who was included just as a throw-in because he said that he wasn't going to play until he was traded or released by the Nets. But I think the 76ers can use him. He's averaging 3 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist on 38, 22, 71% shooting, 24 games played. He is actually a pretty decent player. I really do think that the 76ers can use him. But this is a pretty decent trade, and we're already a long ways into the video, so we're going to not spend that much time on him. The Nets side of the trade. They got an outstanding three-point shooter, a great rebounder and scorer, and an outstanding defender and playmaker who can help when Kyrie Irving's not playing. So we're going to break it down player by player. Seth Curry first. So for the Nets, Seth Curry brings an outstanding shooter who can't really play the best defense, but what he does bring with his shooting and playmaking makes up for it almost completely. This season he's averaging 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists on 48 from the field. 40% from 3 and 88 from the free throw line with a 58 effective field goal percentage, which is really good for a guard. And as he's played 45 games, this is really, really insane for the Nets to get a really good shooter to replace Harden, which obviously you don't want to replace Harden with Seth Curry, but this is one of the main pieces. This is the second main piece, and I would have liked to see him come to any team as the first biggest piece in a trade, but as the second biggest trade, even though you're giving up a superstar, it's still great to get him. Also, the Nets are getting Andre Drummond. Now, Drummond is an insane rebounder. He always wins 6th Man of the Year in 2K. And he can just get the ball in the post and post people up and score right on them. Andre Drummond will help the Brooklyn Nets once LaMarcus Aldridge is hurt or anything. And this season he's averaging 6 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 54% from the field, 51 from free throw, and 49 games played. He is really, really good. Like, just watch. In my league, he has already averaged 12 points and 13 rebounds. He's really good in 2K. And if he can do anything like that with the Nets, it's over for the NBA. That's insane stats. And he has been really good for Philadelphia so far. Like, he's not even been that bad at all. And he's been coming off the bench. I really think that the Nets do need to address their center issue, because Nick Claxton has been playing a lot. He's pretty good. And then you have LaMarcus Aldridge, who's pretty decent after a almost career-ending heart issue last year. Then you have Blake Griffin, who's not been playing that well this year, but do you really take him out of the rotation when he still can help your team at a high level? Or not necessarily at a high level, but when he can still help your team a lot? I don't think so. Daron Sharp, he's been playing a lot he played a lot with the health and safety protocols issues. He was playing really well. And he is the 29th overall pick by the Nets. Yeah, he was traded with the Landry Shamet trade. I really think that you don't take him out of the rotation yet either. That's their main problem now, is their center rotation. I think maybe you have to get rid of Blake Griffin or LaMarcus Aldridge on the buyout market. And then the main piece that you guys have all been waiting for to get traded for the last 2 years. Drum roll, please. Benjamin David Simmons. Now his hair is messed up in 2K after a horrible update that happened in 2K21 at the beginning of the year. But he never even had his hair like that, and it was a preseason update. But no one really cares about that. All we care about is that Simmons was finally traded. The 6'11" point guard, who 2K has put him as 9 as his jersey number, but he is pretty good. I think that he has I definitely don't hate Ben Simmons. I think that he's a good player, and he is a little bit likable, just not in the sense of like his mental issues that he supposedly had with Philadelphia, and I don't like that he didn't shoot ever or anything, but I still like him a little bit. Call me crazy, but he's a likable guy in my opinion, if he can help the Nets. Now, everyone's saying that he's not going to play until after the All-Star break. That's why I have him set as an injury. But once he comes to the team, this team is going to be legit nasty with 2K has him starting Cam Thomas. But this is fully healthy. This team will have Kyrie Irving at the point, Seth Curry at the shooting guard, I think Ben Simmons at the small forward, or Kevin Durant at the small forward, and then either or at power forward, and then Andre Drummond or LaMarcus Aldridge at center, with a bench of Nicholas Claxton, Patty Mills, Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown, David Duke, Darren Sharp, Kessler Edwards, and James Johnson. And then if Joe Harris doesn't need another ankle surgery, this team is going to be really good, and they might even be better than when they had Harden. Because if you really think about it, it's an upgrade. You go from a really good shooting guard that you can already replace. I feel like if you add Seth Curry and Ben Simmons together, that's already better than Harden. And then you also get a really good center that can rebound and play really good defense. It's insane how good they did with that trade, in my opinion. Like, you could completely disagree with me, but I really think that they did really good. And now for the next trade. We only have 4 trades left in the video, and one of them involved the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards. This trade was Montrezl Harrell to the Charlotte Hornets after the Wizards got a very clogged center rotation once Thomas Bryant came back from his torn ACL, and they already had Daniel Gafford, who they weren't going to trade because they signed him to a big extension. They are believers in him. So is Montrezl Harrell just pretty much in a salary dump, you could say, move in exchange for Vernon Carey Jr., Ish Smith, and a second-round pick in 2026? Because the second-round pick date has not actually come out yet, so I put it as 2026. This team has LaMelo Ball and Montrezl Harrell. They're going to be running the pick and roll together. It's going to be fun to watch. Harrell has had a relatively down season because he's been on a pretty decent team in Washington. But this season he's averaging 14, 7, 2 on 65, 27, 73, 65 effective field goal percentage, 46 games played. He's only a 6'7" center, but it's perfectly fine. He makes up for it with his athleticism because LaMelo Ball just dribbling down the court, ISO, pass right up to Montrezl Harrell, the slam dunk, or you could do it to Kelly Oubre, or you could do pick and roll with Harrell and then pass it to Miles Bridges as he's cutting. There's so many super athletic players. I think pretty much every player on this team could do a super cool dunk if they really had to, except for maybe Mason Plumlee or Yeah, Mason Plumlee's the only guy on this whole team that's not super athletic. I know this is very off topic, but I wanted to know what all these guys what their vertical rating is in NBA 2K. And 99 Kelly Oubre, 90 James Bouknight, 89 Miles Bridges, which is criminally low, 89 Scotty Lewis, 86 JT Thor, 85 Nick Richards, 84 Cody Martin, 83 LaMelo, 80 Terry Rozier, 80 Montrez, 80 Kulboka, 78 Jaden McDaniels, and then even Mason Plumlee has a really high rating. And then Kai Jones is, okay, I need to fix this. Kai Jones is a way better dunker than that. We all know it. This team is going to be fun to watch. And plus, they're a pretty young team. I'm not going to say super young, but they're a pretty young team too. And they're going to be able to grow together. This is going to be fun to watch over the next few years. And I'll be maybe a Hornets fan pretty soon if the Thunder don't start turning things around. So for the Washington Wizards in the trade, we aren't going to spend much time on them. They got Vernon Carey Jr., who is in his second season, from Duke with Charlotte. Last season, he had 2 points, 1 rebound per game on 50% from the field. This series, averaging 2 points, 1 rebound, and oh my God, this series averaging 2.0 points, 1.3 rebounds, and 50% exactly from the field. And he hasn't shot a single three, and 67 from the free throw in only 4 games. I feel like I've seen him play a lot more, and like in box scores even and stuff. But Washington can maybe do something with him if they really wanted. But I don't really know what they would do with him to develop him or anything. So I really think that he's just going to get shipped off to another team in the offseason. And then Ish Smith, who played with Washington last season, he's the second player that reunited with the team that he played with last season. But Ish this season is averaging 4.5 points, 1.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists on 40, 63 shooting with 37 games played. He's a 33-year-old 6-foot point guard who's on a pretty decent-sized contract for his productivity, but he can help. He's been traded so many times. He's played for so many teams, but I do think that he can help the Wizards. Next trade, it doesn't really matter that much. It's just Aaron Holiday for a second-round pick. Or for cash, excuse me. Aaron Holiday can come to the team and help. Excuse me, hold on. I need to grab the charger for my computer, which I am using to look at stats for players. So I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, I am back. But Aaron Holiday was traded to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for cash. So the Wizards just completely got rid of him, which is a little bit weird because Bradley Beal is out for the season. So I didn't think that they would give up their backup for him for just cash, but they ended up just doing that. He's averaging 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 47, 34, 80 from the field or from the shooting, and 41 games played. He's actually been pretty decent this year, and he's as good as he has been since his second year in the NBA when he was pretty good. Next, we have yet another Wizards trade, the third one in a row. But this one's a huge one, as they traded for the unicorn himself, Kristaps Porzingis. This was a stupid trade. Tomorrow we will look at trade grades. Maybe even today we'll get out a video of trade grades on Bleacher Report. But this was the trade. It was Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, who really, if we're being honest, Davis Bertans is the most overpaid player in the NBA, for Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick. And I really think that the player that the Mavericks will waive is... So here's what I thought teams would waive. And just like really quick, go through it. I figured that the Kings ended up waiving Robert Woodard and Jameis Ramsey. The Magic waived P.J. Dozier. The Raptors waived Drew Eubanks, and then Etuan Moore and Michael Carter-Williams were waived. Ryan Archie-Aquino was already gone. Mamadi Diakite got waived. And then a real thing that happened in real life, Paul Watson was waived by the Thunder, and they signed Lindy Waters, who was really good in the G League team, to a two-way contract, but we will go over that in a second after we get done with this. So Kristaps Porzingis was traded to the Washington Wizards in exchange for pretty decent point guard, Spencer Dinwiddie. Let's just do this now. Luka's now a shooting guard, but in exchange for pretty good point guard, Spencer Dinwiddie. But here's what I don't understand. Dinwiddie's on a pretty long-term contract. You want to keep Brunson, right? They're both point guards, and I don't think either of them... I guess Dinwiddie can maybe run shooting guard, but one will probably come off the bench this year or next year, because this year Tim Hardaway's out with a fractured foot. So I guess this is what their lineup will really look like this year. After the trade deadline, it will be Jalen Brunson and Ntilikina, and then Dinwiddie and Burke, and then Doncic and Green and Kleber and Bertans, who's making $16 million a year for 3 years. He's already 30. And then their center rotation is non-existent, and it'll be Dwight Powell and Boban Marjanovic. But I do think that they will waive Moses Brown, because Marquise Chris is a lock to stay on this team. Maybe, not even Sterling Brown, I don't think would get waived. Maybe Frank Ntilikina, he would be the only other guy. But here's what it looks like for the Mavericks. Spencer Dinwiddie can come to this team. He's a pretty decent scorer, but he's best known for his playmaking and his defense as a point guard. He is a pretty decent defender. And his actual ratings, his perimeter defense is a rating of a 75. So that's pretty decent. It's about average for a point guard in this game. But he will run shooting guard for the Dallas Mavericks. He's averaging 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists for this season for Washington. And he on 38, 31, 81 from the field on 44 games played. And at the very beginning of the season, he was really good with Washington. I feel like I'm pretty sure he actually won a Player of the Month award or something. But even if he didn't end up winning that award, he was really good. Then he started falling off, and then the main reason that they traded him and not other players is because he reportedly had a horrible relationship with the team and was like super mad at the team because they were like making fun of him and stuff. So he requested a trade, and he ended up getting it to the Dallas Mavericks. So now for Davis Bertans. First of all, this face scan doesn't look anything like him, but that's off topic. He's averaging this season 6 points, 2 rebounds, and a half of an assist on 35, 32, 93 shooting, 34 games played, and only about 15 minutes per game. Last season, he was 26 minutes per game, and then the year that he got the extension, 2019-20, right after that season he got the extension, he was averaging 29 minutes per game. That's why they decided to sign him to an extension, because he was really good that year. But now all he can really do is he's an outstanding three-point stretch shooter, and his defense is about average. That's about all he can do, though. With Washington and the Wizards, we didn't go over Kristaps' stats, and he's been okay this year. I really thought that he also was a guy that came out of the gates this season and started really well. I really thought that after that he was going to stay on the Dallas Mavericks, but they ended up trading him. I thought that him and Luka were an okay fit. Like, obviously, I knew I wasn't dumb. I knew that him and Luka weren't the greatest together, but I didn't think that he was going to get traded. It's just really weird to see him in a Wizards jersey. But he's only 26. He's really good. 7'3". He's going to run. Okay, so here's what they're going to do. Their point guards, I don't even know who you put at point guard on this team. I guess you'll just put Nato and Ish Smith, because I would say run Bradley Beal at the point guard and Avdia or something at the shooting guard, but Beal's out, so I guess you just pursue the buyout market for a point guard. That's all they can really do. But like I said, I think that they're going to play Avdija and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at the shooting guard position. And then I think at the small forward, they will play Kyle Kuzma, not Rui. And then power forward will be Kristaps Porzingis, who is averaging this season 19 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 45, 28, 86 shooting, 34 games played. And the problem with him in Dallas is Dallas was getting sick of his injuries. They didn't want him to ever get hurt again, pretty much, which obviously is impossible, especially with a guy like him. So they traded him. They got a decent package for him, but Washington just completely stole him. Next year with Bradley Beal completely healthy, they're going to be amazing. And if somehow Bradley Beal is ahead of his timeline and can come back in the playoffs or in the play-in tournament or anything, this team is going to be really, really good. And it's going to be really good to watch. Also, I'm not sure, is Bradley Beal an all-star? No, Bradley Beal's not an all-star. I was thinking they were going to have to get a replacement for him, but he's not even on the team, so that's fine. But Porzingis can come to this team. He's not really a stretch four anymore, but he's going to do what Dallas thought that he was going to do this season, just be a poster up big and dominate down low in the post. I still think that this team can make the playoffs with Porzingis and Kuzma, or the play-in tournament, excuse me. But they're going to need a point guard in the buyout market, because I don't think Darren Collison is not very good. I think maybe Emmanuel Mudiay is the only good player that can come in and help them, because they really want to score. And I think Mike James is under contract overseas. Chris Dunn is definitely not a scorer. Ooh, Brandon Knight, if they can give him just the keys to the car and just say drive it. Augustine, not really. Chris Clemens is a really good scorer, but he's pretty much done in the league already. He didn't even play a game with the Hawks. But after his Achilles tear, he's pretty much done. Even though he was really good the year that he tore his Achilles. So this team is going to be really good once all their players get back from injury. And I think that they'll have a 9-man rotation looking like this. Maybe Kispert is out of the rotation and they play a guy like Gill or probably Ish Smith. But with only one more trade to go, the video is almost over. And for the Houston Rockets, they traded Daniel Tice, who was a very overpaid player for the Rockets, back to the team they used to play for, the Boston Celtics, in exchange for Dennis Schroeder, Bruno Fernando, and then Cantor Freedom, who was immediately waived by the team, who could get picked up by a pretty decent team. But also waived by the Houston Rockets was DJ Augustine, who was on a big contract, so they just didn't want him anymore because he wasn't even playing that much. And then Armani Brooks, who was actually pretty good this year, but they needed one more roster spot to make the trade happen, and they had to waive somebody. But I do believe that they do have one more open they have one more open roster spot, so I would say that they should just bring Brooks right back, unless they're going to try to pursue the buyout market, but they're a rebuilding team. I don't think that they're going to do that. But I really think that you buy out John Wall at this point if you're Houston. Just let him go somewhere. He's done with you. You don't want him anymore. And then for the players that they got, Bruno Fernando, he hasn't barely played this year with Boston, but he has been an okay rebounder and interior defender his career. He has averaged 1 point and 1 rebound per game this season, with 50% from the field goal from the field, and 100% from the 3-point line, and 80% from the free throw line in 20 games. I'm expecting really low. Yeah, only 3 minutes per game. But in his few minutes, he's been a great rebounder and interior defender. He was pretty decent with the Hawks, but then they traded him to the Celtics. I don't remember which trade that was in. But if he was still with the Hawks, I feel like he would be getting some playing time. But he is a free agent this year, and I think the Rockets will probably let him walk, even though they do have his qualifying offer. They could re-sign him if they really wanted. Lastly with the Rockets, you have Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder has, so far this season, not been the greatest. He really wishes that he would have accepted that contract option with the Los Angeles Lakers. And this season he's averaging 14, 3, 4 on 44, 35, 85, and 49 games played. And he's been okay with Boston, but he was coming off the bench for Marcus Smart most of the season, and 49 games played. He only started 25. They were doing it like every few games they would start Schroeder at point and Smart at shooting guard, but they switched it up every once in a while just to get something new, I guess. But Schroeder, the Celtics were just dumping salary, and Schroeder helps the Rockets if they really want to play him. If they don't play him, just buy him out or just release him off his contract because they have a ton of cap space. But even if he does stay on the team, he's going to be backing up Kevin Porter Jr. at point guard. So their team will look like Porter, Schroeder, Green, Gordon, Tate, Matthews, Wood, Martin, and Şengün, Fernando. And then I say bring back Armani Brooks. So last player of the video, and then we're finally over with after an hour and a half about for me. It'll be edited for you guys. But lastly, we have Daniel Tice, who the Boston Celtics traded for. He is a 6'9", 245 center, kind of short, but he's from Germany. He's played 4 years in the league. No, wait, this is his 5th year. Excuse me. But he's making $8 million this year and about $8 million for the next 3 years. And he's a pretty good shooter. And this season, he's averaging 8 points, 5 rebounds, 47, 29, 67 from the field, 26 games played. And he won't be getting that much playing time off the bench for Boston, but he will still be playing for the team that he played for just 1 season ago. So thank you guys for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. I will be having a trade grades video and also an all-star draft video. So please like and subscribe if you like the comment, and as always, have a great day. Peace.